warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, my name is Dinada Ashafadillah. You can call me Nada. A. Students make mistake. Lee interference. Students who learn English as a second language already have a deep knowledge of at least one other language. Where that Lee and the variety of English they are learning come into contact with each other, there are often confusions which provoke error in a learner's use of English. This can be at the levels of sounds. Arabic, for example, while I does not have a phonemic distinctions between and V, and Arabic speakers may vary when they mean vary. It can be at the level of grammar, where our students' first language has a subtly different system. Developmental error. For a long time now, researchers in child language development have been aware of the phenomenon of overgeneralizations. This is best described as a situation where a child who starts by saying daddy went, they can etc. perfectly correctly suddenly start saying daddy good and they come. B. Assessing students' performance. Teachers assessing students' comments, marks and grades and then report. 2. Students assessing themselves.
Okay, feedback during oral work, board assessment and correction can be very helpful during oral work. Teachers should not necessarily deal with all oral production in the same way. Decision about how to react the performance will depend upon the state of the lesson, the activity, the type of mistake made, and particular student who is making that mistake. Accuracy and fluency. We need to decide whether particular activity in the classroom is designed to expect the student complete accuracy in the study of a piece of grammar, a pronunciation exercise, or some vocabulary work. For example, we are asking the student to use the language fluently as possible. Need to make a clear difference between non-communicative and communicative activities. Whether the former are generally intended correctness, the latter are designed to improve language fluency. The next, feedback during accuracy work. The first set of technique we need to be aware of then is devoted to showing incorrectness. These techniques are only really beneficial for what we are assuming to be language slip rather than embedded or systematic error. They have 6 incorrectness. The first one, repeating. Here we can ask the student to repeat what they have said, perhaps by saying again, which, coupled with intonation and expression, will indicate that something isn't clear. The second, encouraging. This can be precise way of pinpointing an error. We repeat what the student has said, embracing the part of utterance that was wrong. Third, statement and question. We can of course simply say good try, but that's not quite right, or do people think that correct, to indicate that something hasn't quite worked. And fourth, expression. When we know our classes well, a simple physical expression, example, a wobbling hand, may be enough to indicate that something doesn't quite work. And fifth, finding a quick way of helping students to activate role they already know, but which they have temporarily mislearned, is to give a quiet hand. The last one, reformulation, a correction technique which is widely used both for accuracy and fluency work is for the teacher to repeat back a correct version of what the student has said, reformulating the sentence but without making a big issue of it. Feedback during fluency work, the way in which we respond the student when they speak is a fluency activity will have a significant bearing not only on how well they perform at the time, but also on how they behave in fluency activity in the future. The first one, gentle correction. If communication break down completely during a fluency activity, we may will have to intervene. And the second, recording mistake. We frequently act as observe, watching and listening to students so that we can give feedback afterward. Such observation allow us to give good feedback to our students on how well they have performed, always remembering.
Okay, next is feedback on written work. The way we give feedback on writing will depend on the kind of writing text the student have undertaken and the effect we wish to create. When students do workbook exercise based on controlled testing activities, we will mark their effort right or wrong, possibly penciling in the correct answer for them to study. However, when we give feedback on more creative or communicative writing, we will approach the text with circumspection and clearly demonstrate our interest in the contents of the student work. Whether we are making a finished product, during the writing process, we will be responding rather than correcting. The first is responding. When we respond, we say how the text appeared to us and how successful we think it has been. We give a middle, in other words, before suggestion how it could be improved. Such a response are vital and various stage of the writing process. The comments we offer students need to appear helpful and not cancerous. Sometimes they will be in the margin of students' work or on a computer. They can be written valuable comments either by using an editing program or by writing in comments in a different color. If we want to offer more extensive comments, we may need to separate piece of paper or separate computer document. Next is correcting. Many teachers use correction code to indicate that students have made mistake in their writing work. This code can be written into the body of the text itself or the margin. This makes correction much neater and less threatening than random mark and command. We can also correct by putting ticks, again good point, or another appropriate symbol, such as, for example, a cycle if the lessons are taking place in Japan. An underlining problem, we can write summarizing comments at the end of student work saying what was appropriate and what needs correcting. The last is training students. If students are to be benefit from our feedback on their writing, they need to know what we mean and what to do about it. This involves training them to understand the process. We might start by writing incorrect sentence on the board, such as I don't enjoy to watch TV. Activities like this get them to use both to the idea of error spotting and also to convention of underlining. And later we can give them several sentences, some which are correct and some which are not. They have to decide which is which. The teachers then discuss the student effort with the class. Once students have had a good chance to get to know how to use correction symbol, we can start to use them while looking at student work.
Hi guys, my name is Atika Braho. Here I will to continue to explain the next point of feedback or written word, and I will continue with the move for evolving student. So far, we have discussed the teacher's feedback to students, but we can also encourage students to give feedback to each other. Such a peer review has extremely positive effect on group cohesion. It encourages students to monitor each other's and as a result, help them to become better at self-monitoring. And next is finishing the feedback process. Except where students are talking achievement tasks, written feedback is designed not just to give an assessment of the student work, but also to help and teach. Give feedback because want to affect the students' language use in the future as well as comment upon it in the past. And the last is burning the money oil. Why burn the money oil? As I sleep. In the article which discusses the stress of writing feedback for students and teachers. For students, the size of the work covered in corrections can cause great anxiety. For teachers, marking and correcting take up an enormous amount of time. Both teachers and students deserve a break from this drudgery. Along with other commentators, Lee has a number of ways of varying the amount of marking and the way teachers do it. This includes 1. Selective marking. We do not need to mark everything all the time. 2. Different error codes. There is no reason why students and teachers should always use the same error codes. At different levels and for different tasks, we may want to make shorter lists of possible errors or tell what we are looking at for the class in questions. And 3. Don't mark all the paper. Teacher may not decide only to mark some of the script they are given as a sample of what the class has done as a whole. They can then use what they find there for post-text teaching with the whole class. And the last is involve the students. Teacher can correct some of the script and student can look at the some of the others. As we saw in D4 above, peer correction has extremely beneficial results. We are not, of course, suggesting abandoning teachers' feedback, but we need to be able to think creatively about how it can best be done in interest of both students and teachers. Okay guys, that's all from our group presentation about managing learning mistakes and feedback. Thank you for watching this video and your attention. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.